Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in opposition to this amendment, but partly because I'd like to expand our approach to this. And I'm going to make this confession to the body that some of this debate seems a little tedious to me. And the reason is because I'm looking at this little struggle that's going on between the executive branch and the legislative branch, and we're seeking to pass legislation that grants more authority for Congress to go into an Article III court and onto the Supreme Court to get a resolution of what the Constitution says and what it means and what the law says and what the law means. And I would assert that this Constitution does not grant the Supreme Court the authority to decide these disagreements between the executive and the legislative branch of government. That is rooted in Marbury versus Madison, which is an asserted power, not a defined constitutional power. And the reason I say that is because power itself by nature is something that if an individual or if an entity claims power and they're able to assert the power, and if those who see that happen concede that and allow it to happen or don't have the ability to interfere with it, then the assertion of the power becomes something that is then claimed thereafter. So, yes, we're going to the Supreme Court when we can to get them to be the referee between the executive and the legislative branch of government, and it seems a little bit odd that we're asking the Supreme Court or any Article III court for that's established by Congress to sort out the difference. Yes, it needs to happen. I want to see this happen. I want to go to the court and I get a decision, but we should not overlook that this Congress also says, especially in this Judiciary Committee and specifically within the Constitution Subcommittee, we say what the Constitution says and we say what the Constitution means. And I don't want to let this body lose sight of that fact, that it isn't only the Supreme Court that says what the Constitution says and what it means. It isn't the president who lectures the Supreme Court in a State of the Union address on what the Constitution says, but it's also this Congress. And we ought to have the confidence to know that when we take an oath to preserve, protect, and defend this Constitution, the oath to defend this Constitution, it's not the oath to the Constitution as the president says it is or the Constitution as the Supreme Court might say it is. It's the oath to what the Constitution says, the text of the Constitution, and the convictions in our head and in our heart that we're taking an oath to. So I want to reiterate that point that power is something that can be claimed by anyone or any entity. Look what Putin's done in the Crimea over the last few days. He's asserted power. Well, he has that power because it's not been challenged. The president has defined what the Constitution means. The Supreme Court's backed that up in the case of Obamacare. But we here in this Congress should not lose sight of the fact that we define this Constitution, especially here in this Judiciary Committee, and we're going to the courts because that's where the power seems to be. But if the president decides he's not going to abide by an order of the court, it's the same level of disrespect for the Constitution as it is when he decides he's not going to abide by or enforce a law that's duly passed by this Congress, especially when it's a law like Obamacare that carries not only his signature but also his name. I yield back the balance of my time, and I thank the Chairman.